Hi, welcome to Leave It on the Court. My name is Corey Randall,
My name is Moustapha Yaora.
and today's discussion is: would you rather be a role player with rings or a star player without rings? I know a lot of people think a lot of people have the belief that winning is everything, uh, and the only thing, as the saying goes. But which is more important to you?
Well, this is kind of like a double-edged sword. For me, my pick, I'm gonna pick being a role player with with rings because let's say for example, like I'm a young player, right? Like let's say like I'm 22, 21 years old on a championship team that has
Hmm.
won. My role doesn't always have to be a role player. I can win that championship, take that experience, watch film or whatever the case may be, get stronger, get better, get faster, and later ascend to a star player where I'm more equipped to win a championship because I know what it takes to win.
Hmm.
If I was to just be a star player and my whole life I'm a star player, I think when I look at it, because sometimes it could be very like you just looking at some of these good players like an Anthony Davis, like a Devin Booker. Some of these guys who average really good numbers, but they just can't seem to win or
They
win
don't win,
anything meaningful.
right?
And one common denominator that I've seen is their mindset. You could tell is what can I do versus what can I do for the team, or how can I affect this guy? What can I trigger in the guys around me for me to win? And a guy who's been a role player, who's been on a championship team, probably will have a better understanding of what it takes first, what it takes mentally. How do you think? How do you prepare? What does entail? The intensity. So then it's like you just have a newfound confidence, And I think, and this goes back to drafting too. Like I really don't like the concept of the more, what's a better word to say, the more poor teams in the league drafting, at the lottery because they just typically don't draft well. One, they don't draft well, and two, most of the time you put guys who've been in a lottery in a situation where it's like a dead end for them, and their careers sometimes don't go well because they either have they're in bad organization, bad coaching, just bad culture. It just spells losing all over the place.
Hmm.
And like a situation like a Devin Booker was in. Devin Booker was in a bad situation. It was a dead end until recently when they went on and hired James Jones as was it GM or president. Things started changing. They got a better coach now, Monty Williams, who I think is good for young guys. They got more talent around them.
Hmm.
It just seemed like for years and years, it just accumulating draft picks. And I'm pretty glad that the NBA is looking to make a change where it's not so much the bottom seed teams getting these lottery picks year in and year out, because it's starting to show that these guys just don't do well with those picks. You know,
Hmm.
most of the time you see the better teams that can pick maybe 15, 20, 25 and still draft pretty well. And these guys flourish because
Right.
they're in better systems, better coaching, just better culture for what they want to achieve later on in their career, if that's a championship, hopefully. I
Right.
don't know how you see it.
I see it as I can see what you mean by a double-edged sword. It really depends. It depends, because the question isn't completely the topic isn't completely detailed with that question because it depends what kind of role player you are. Um, for me, I'd under most circumstances I'd rather be the star player with no rings, and the reason is when I if I'm a player coming into the league and I'm, let's just say I'm a certified or a bona fide, star player,
Hmm.
I I want to make my mark on the league because yes, you're playing in a competition and yes, you want to win, but at the same time, it depends on your role. There's some guys who don't mind getting a ring or winning, and they don't play a minute. Um, or you have a lot of role players who may play a few minutes, here and there, but you're not such a significant role to the team for why they won. So then it kind of takes away the value in that regard. So it's like, if I were to give a few examples, it's like, would you rather be, Mario Chalmers with a couple of rings, or would you rather be Charles Barkley with no rings? And for me, it's like, I'd rather be Charles Barkley because I've made my name in the league. I'm a Hall of Fame player. I got paid the big bucks as a star player. I made my mark. Everybody knows I can ball. Everybody knows I can hoop. Not to say that Mario Chalmers can't hoop, but like, when you look back in history and you look at those Heat championships, I mean, who's really gonna be like, oh yeah, I remember, Mario Chalmers did this? No, you're gonna think about LeBron. You're gonna think about D Wade, Bosh, and Ray Allen, things like that nature.
So when you said role player, so you were saying like a guy who doesn't have much of significance on a team, or a role player who has a specialty, who they're like, all right, this is an X factor guy. If that guy doesn't play, they don't win. Because that's how I kind of that's kind of how I took it. Like, role player, you could be anything. You could be a role player that's pretty significant on a team, where it's like, if this guy is not with us, we don't win that championship. And
My
then,
my my thing as a role player, are you a guy who's like a Hall of Fame type of guy, basically? Like, are you a guy people are really, really gonna remember? Like, are you gonna be like a Robert Ory? Are you gonna be a guy like who's known to have ice in his veins and hit a lot of big shots, hit shots in the clutch and things of that nature? Are you gonna have that role? Because if you're gonna have that role as like that type of X factor role player, then I mean, by all means, I can understand, picking that side. But if you're gonna be a role player who's played, but like a lot of people aren't gonna remember you, and you didn't play, you weren't. It's basically, if you were off the team, that team would have won.
you were
Like,
basically
type of.
like invisible, basically.
Yeah, then it's like, then what's the point? Because at the end of the day, as playing the game, you want people to remember you as a hooper. You want people to know that you could ball. Like, you want to know people that you could ball. Also, obviously, that you could win. But it's like, if you're gonna be on a team that's won a bunch of championships, but you're forgotten, then I'd rather be a guy who made a mark on a league. Like, I was a star player. Everybody knows who I am. I'm a top 50 player all time. I made the big bucks, although I never won. Like, everybody knows what I'm about.
hmm Well,
So
for
it kind of
me,
depends.
yeah, for me, if you're saying a role player, a bench warmer, or a guy who's invisible, who they could have won without of, trust me, I'm picking the latter. But for me, how I look at it is, look, if I'm a role player, an X factor, an important guy that, I'm not a star player, I'm not an all star, but I'm a quality starter, and I'm young, and I want a chip. For me, that gives me what that does for you, and among your peers, you're respected. So let's say if I leave that team and go to another team, if I say something in that locker room, they respect me. I don't have to be a Hall of Famer yet, or a guy who of a higher stature like a Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, those kind of guys. Yet I'm still young and I can grow. For me, how I looked at it is like, look, I could be a role player then, and then later on, like transcend like a Jimmy Butler, or maybe like a Paul George, where like they kind of transcended, they ascended to being the better players for
Hmm.
their team. Because that's how I look. Just like how you talking about, I want to be remembered. You want to be on, and you also want to feel good about your game. But to me, I want to feel good about my game, but I want to be respected. I don't
Right.
want to be it, because another thing too is, whenever you're a star player that don't win, you always have an asterisk next to your name. It's like, oh, this guy was good, but he hasn't won. The guys they bring up all the time: Irving Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, Jordan. Those are
Uh-huh.
guys that are brought up very often because they've won. And when we talking about Hall of Famers, ain't nobody thinking of twice about putting them in first ballot because they
Yeah.
deserve it. Like, let's say, for example, a T Mac.
Uh-huh.
You got players kind of that don't respect him. Like, I respect his game. Like, at one point, he was the best player in the league, but he was, when he got inducted, You got even players in our day and age that like, how did you get there? Like, you didn't win no ring. Like, you didn't win nothing. Like I guess you got guys who respected him and guys who really like, I don't know, this guy, what has he really done? You know, he was good at one point, but towards the latter part of his career, he just kept getting hurt, and his play started to decrease, and decrease. So that's my take on it. Like, I always feel like I can ascend, and for one, I want that respect. There's nothing like having that respect when you go on a different team, and if you say something, it goes. You don't have to, be in combat with your teammates.
Yeah, I think that's what it is with T Mac. I think especially how you finish your career, and he battled injuries for the last like several years. I think because he went out like that, a lot of people may question. They forget how good he was because he
Yeah.
had several years where it's like he wasn't playing or he wasn't really doing much or he's sitting out being injured. Um, but yeah, I mean, you can choose either side with that. But at the same time, you can look at certain people. My question is like, did you lose? Did you you can still look at somebody as a phenomenal player even if they haven't won. Doesn't mean I wouldn't say because you never won anything you're a failure. I mean, look at
Hmm.
Chris Paul. Chris Paul has
Yeah.
never been to the finals, but Chris Paul will cook and destroy 95% of point guards in the league. So, and he's one of the best point guards ever. So it kind of just depends on the type of mark you leave on the game, but I can see what you mean. Being that X factor player. But if you're gonna be that X factor player who's won as a young player, you need to really become that guy. I mean, because you look
Hmm.
at. So I thought Sam Cassell was a pretty good player. He won a championship when he first came to the league with Houston, but like, I don't think he ever blew
Ascended.
up. And yeah, like he kind of was kind of second fiddle or whatever to Kevin Garnett and even like with Charles Sprewell to a certain aspect, but he still was a pretty good player.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, I get it. I get what it's like. Like having those individual goals as well as team goals, like where you really want to be good, you want to make your mark. And trust me, if I was playing today, that's where I would want to be. I don't want to, you know, be second fiddle, or I wouldn't mind being second fiddle if I'm playing with another superstar, but most likely you just want to make your mark. You want to be known as that guy, you know. So I get your point as well.
Yep. Well, that wraps that one up.
Thank you guys once again for tuning in. Um, Happy Easter for the guys who didn't see our other video. Please like and subscribe. Give us feedback. Give us your opinion on what you think. If you were in this situation, would you want to be a role player or would you want to be a star player? How do you see it? So we would love to hear your opinion, and thanks for tuning in again. Happy Easter, and see you on the next one.
See you on the next one.
Those.